Hi, my name is Neta Maimon. I'm doing an internship here at RITMO Centre with Professor Jonna Vuoskoski, and I'm a postdoc fellow in musicology department at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem with Professor Roni Granot, also present today. Today I'm going to talk about synthetic versus live music, examining the impact on social bonding in modern music production. This research is also a collaboration with Dr. Jan Stupacher. Before we go into the details, let's have a look at two videos and try to play the game Detect the Differences. Shall we? Here's the first one. Second one. So the first was major and the second minor. And the first they walked synchronously and the second asynchronously. But could you detect that the first was played with synthetic virtual instruments and the second with live playing? In this lecture, we will review the history and cognitive background of virtual instruments phenomena. I'll describe two exploratory online experiments that were conducted. VSTs, short for Virtual Studio Technologies, are digital software plugins designed to simulate traditional musical instruments and effects. Developed in the mid-90s by Steinberg with their Cubase software, VSTs democratized music production. According to the Music Producers Guild, by the 2010s, over 70% of producers and sound engineers began using digital audio workstations, or DAWs, with VSTs as their primary tool. The transformation can be witnessed in mainstream music and film scores, where the timbral possibilities expanded exponentially. Moreover, companies like Native Instruments have reported significant yearly growth, signaling the widespread use of digital instruments libraries. Today, mainstream music and film scores heavily rely on VSTs, using them to achieve grand orchestral sounds or experimental electronic timbres without recording live instruments. As AI technology matures, firms like OpenAI and Google's Magenta project are exploring AI roles in music generations, hinting at a future where VSTs and AI might meld, revolutionizing sound design and composition. What cognition has to do with it? Focusing on the distinction between mechanically played and performed rhythms, there haven't been much research exploring the differences in perception or specifically in entrainment between these two. Research by Dreketa revealed that mechanically generated rhythms create greater entrainment at faster level. In contrast, live performances resonate more with slower metrical hierarchies. Cameron and colleagues further showed that mechanical rhythms lead to stronger neural entrainment, yet, intriguingly, the urge to move and complexity, where we perceived, is correlated and distinctly associated only with performed rhythms. This greater entrainment in faster rates within mechanical rhythms can likely be attributed to their precision. Yet, most research focused on the aspect of playing, specifically percussive instruments, and their ability to create motor entrainment. Our hypothesis centers on the broader use of these instruments. Interestingly, they're mostly not played by humans. And when they are, it's often not on traditional instruments, but through keyboards. We believe that distinction between these digital instruments and their traditional counterparts lies on the micromodulations, whether controlled consciously or subconsciously by humans. These subtle shifts occur in timing, pitch, timbre, and loudness. Given music's evolutionary role in fostering social bonds through group entrainment, we aim to investigate if music played by these instruments might evoke weaker social connections, human agency, or emotions like sadness or empathy. We ran 2 online experiments, exploratory online experiments. In our initial experiment, we adopted a methodology pioneered by Jan Stupacher. In this approach, participants watched videos featuring stick figures and are prompted to envision themselves as one of these figures. These figures can either walk in sync together or out of sync. After viewing, participants answer questions regarding their perceived connections to the other figure using the inclusion of other scale, iOS scale, among other queries. Typically, findings indicated that the iOS score is higher when the figures walk synchronously compared to asynchronously, and that this effect can be influenced by musical features depicted in the background music. In our study, we aim to understand how this social and perception changes when the music is rendered by virtual instruments versus a live performance. In the first experiment, our variables included speed, mode, synchrony, and of course, liveness. We recorded individual players performing their parts of a musical piece, with each recording separately. No adjustments were made to the pitch or rhythm of their individual performances. For the virtual instrument, we sampled sounds directly from these players and used it in the MIDI playing, fully quantizing the rhythm and velocity to create a flattened effect. So this is one example. Here's another example. So the second one is the MIDI, the first one was played live. Participants were asked questions after each video, not only the iOS scale, but also related to evoked emotions and movement, perceived movement maybe. After watching all videos, they heard the music separately and were asked questions about perceived emotion, energy, and hedonicity. Pertinent findings related to liveness revealed a marginal interaction between liveness and mode in the video valence question. The distinction between MIDI and live recordings was notably more evident in the minor mode, though all simple effects in this context were significant. So the MIDI was happier than the live, and it was larger in the minor. In the auditory questions, however, there were 2 very strong main effects, indicating that the MIDI recording was perceived as happier and more energetic than the live, not modulated by any other effect. So one interpretation is that the MIDI version appears more upbeat and therefore perceived as happier. However, it's possible that the live music in this context can maybe convey deeper, maybe more emotion, human emotions like sadness. To further investigate this, we aim to replicate our findings using more than one musical composition. We also eliminated the speed variable and sought to create more ecologically valid stimuli by recording ensemble performances together, rather than individual instruments recorded separately. This is how it sounded. So So these are all ensemble playing recorded together at the music studio. Sorry. The questions were slightly different, but same general paradigm was applied. Okay, that's also the questions after the audio part. Firstly, the auditory findings were replicated, indicating that the auditory MIDI is perceived as considerably happier and more energetic than the live performance. Again, not modulated by any other effect. In terms of visual or video valence, which leans more towards evoked rather than perceived emotions, the results was subtler and more in line with our hypothesis. The distinction between live and MIDI performances elicited sadder emotions only in the minor condition, still marginally, and calls for replication. In the major mode, there was no difference in emotion conveyed by the MIDI or live performance. So as you can see, the live was evoking sadder emotions only in the minor, not in the major. This effect, observed only in the minor mode, was also evidenced in the evoked hedonism questions. The distinction between live and MIDI arose solely in the minor sync condition, where the live produced less hedonistic feeling, specifically around movement, than MIDI, with no such difference in the major one. These initial results suggest a general tendency for live music, particularly in minor mode, to evoke sadder emotions when incorporated in the videos. Live music was also generally perceived as sadder and less energetic when played without the video. Further research is needed to explore the effects observed in this exploratory study, which highlighted fine differences in social bonding experiences elicited by synthetic and live music performances. By examining the specific traits of the synthetic instruments and their impact on social bonding, we might better understand the potential social effect of music generated by digital tools. As AI-generated music relies heavily on synthetic instruments, these findings may offer insights into the impact of AI-generated music on social bonding experiences. Thank you very much.